Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, what we do is we go back and forth and we talk about the latest home video releases, some good, some bad, some really awful. But we talk about the releases, what's kind of cool about them, what maybe should be on your radar, and what is maybe not that great. But you know what? We always have a good time. But I'm going to kick it off to you to start us off this week.
I appreciate that. Yes, I have a stacked slate. People who have been with us for a while, they know that some weeks I have like an insane amount. And I have a lot of box sets this week. So it's been a week, but I'm going to try to go through a lot of these as quickly as possible. I'm starting out with a single title, though. This is a new one from Sony. It's continuing on work that they started last year. So this is the 25th anniversary of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer on 4K. We got the original last year, and I think we were all crossing our fingers that we'd get the sequel, and here it is. And nice slipcover that's different than the cover art underneath. And then so you have the new 4K disc and the original Blu-ray disc, which has been out for a while. So no remastered Blu-ray disc, but you have that there for some of the original features that have been ported over, along with some of the new features on the 4K disc, which I'll get into in a little bit. I had seen parts of this before. I remember when I was younger, I just remember kind of like a vague memory of Jack Black and dreadlocks that kind of like was in my head. And so I knew I had seen a little bit of this before, but I'd never seen it in full. And overall, I think it's a pretty solid sequel. I think it's pretty fun. It's kind of has a little bit more of like a lighter tone than the first one. But overall, I think it works really well. I think there's definitely moments you have to strain your credulity a little bit, because like the initial kind of like incident where, so it's two of the main characters from the original film that survived. They continue on, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. They're continuing on in this sequel, and there's some new characters played by Brandy and Mekhi Phifer and some other people. But what kind of starts this whole thing off, where Jennifer Love Hewitt's character is kind of processing her trauma from the first movie, is they win a radio contest to go to this tropical island. And right away, both my wife and I were like, what kind of radio contest calls you to start the contest entry? That's not how contests work. So that's a which you kind of learn about later. This is basically just like a slasher movie on a tropical island with the classic hook man and all the stuff going down. And the island's a little bit creepy. Like I said, you have like a dreadlock Jack Black, which isn't inherently creepy, but he's just a stoner looking to have a good time, and some other people who they seem needlessly like standoffish on this island. It kind of felt like going into this, I'm like, oh, is this entire island in on this scheme? But no, they're just being played very weirdly by the actors. But overall, it's a fun slasher. Overall, it's very predictable. Pretty much as soon as like certain characters come on screen, you're like, oh, they're in on it, and you're pretty much right. But if you like a good like kind of popcorn slasher film, I think this kind of hits the spot. It's sleek. There's a little bit of gore, not a crazy amount, but decent gore. Acting is passable. Some funny-ish jokes. Very, very dumb decisions throughout, which still lead to people's death. So you have all that to look forward to. So overall, solid sequel. I put it pretty much up there with the first one. These are not top-tier slashers like Scream, but they're fun enough. Anyone who had the previous Blu-ray, which I pointed out on is in this release, knows that it did not look good at all. It was very kind of it was an older master. It's very soft and everything. This new 4K scan from the original camera negative, which is now presented in Dolby Vision, looks fantastic. Anyone who's seen the first film knows how good these films can look, and this looks like it's pretty much on par with that. Maybe just like a smidge less impressive than the first one, but overall still fantastic. So looks very good. Nice, bright, vibrant colors, crisp detail, nicely resolved film grain. The Dolby Atmos audio is very immersive. Nice use of like the height channels and everything. But this also includes the original DTS 5.1 as an option as well, if you're kind of be one more of a purist. Either way, most audio tracks sound really great. As I said, the original Blu-ray has some of the archival featurettes, including like a very brief making on, I think it was like 8 minutes, a music video, and like a trailer. But then Sony, they provided with the 4K disc, they added some new special features, including an audio commentary with the director and a new 12-minute interview with the man who plays the man with the hook. I think his name is Muse Watson. Yes. So a 12-minute interview with Muse Watson. That he did a new interview for the first film too. So he's probably just filmed those back to back. He has some very interesting. He has a very laid back persona in his interviews. It's interesting to watch him, but he's very off the cuff and very real, which I appreciate. So some good new special features, all the old archival special features, fantastic audio and visual. If you're a fan of this film, I don't think you really can ask for more. Sony slipcovers seem to go pretty quickly compared to other studios. So if you want something different, like make sure to get it sooner rather than later. But overall, highly recommended if you're a fan of the film.
Nice. And Jack Black will be popping up a little bit later in one of my titles. So,
Nice.
you know, I know we plan that meticulously, of course. Yeah, no, I haven't seen this in a while, so I feel like this would be a really fun revisit. Jeffrey Combs is in this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mwah, great. I remember him being wonderfully creepy. So yeah, that sounds awesome. I like how they definitely added some new stuff, some archival stuff. It's a little bit more like bang for your buck. So
Absolutely.
I hate to do this, but I kind of want to bring us down a little bit with my first title. It's gonna get better though.
Okay.
I think this is the only title that I didn't really like. So that is After Dark, My Sweet. And here is the back.
I just watched that this morning.
Oh, okay. Well, I have some thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one kind of baffles me because I try to sort of like see what the like critical reception of a movie was after I kind of formed my own opinion. And like this was a very acclaimed film. I had never heard of it before. It is based on a neo-noir novel of the same name, which kind of makes sense because it does, you know, it has like that voiceover narration. I'm assuming that's probably taken a little bit from like the actual book, structure wise. But yeah, it's kind of baffling because I feel like this movie is so bewildering at times and also sort of pretentious. There's a really interesting kidnapping plot, but it's sort of just weighed down with this really messy kind of romance slash double cross. There's a lot of like unnecessary subplots, some filler. I think it's interesting. The guy, Jason Patrick, who he was in Lost Boys.
Yeah, and he was in The Beast, which I talked about last week. So
oh yeah,
tank drama. Yeah,
yeah, he's great in this, and I think his backstory as this sort of unhinged boxer is very interesting. It's not that they don't flesh that out; it's just it feels so kind of whatever to the larger plot. You know, there's even times when he's like, "Oh, I know I'm being set up for this, but like I'm going to do it anyways." But of course, he does it to sort of like mess up the plan. I don't want to give too much away, but of course, things really kind of go awry. I just feel like this movie's not good. I feel like it could have used a tighter focus. This weirdly cost $6 million, and only made two. It does not look like a $6 million movie, especially in 1990. So I don't know. I think, like I said, I like the actors in it. I mean, Bruce Dern is amazing. This does have commentary track and has some interviews. So it's a nice release, and it looks really nice as well. It's not a particularly visual movie, but it does. I will say this leads to one of the things I did like about this movie is it is really well shot. So I do kind of like how the new 2K scan really showcases the really nice cinematography, but just wasn't really my cup of tea. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I'm not quite as down on it as you, but I'm kind of shocked to learn that it was critically acclaimed. It kind of just seemed more so forgettable. I mean, I hate to say that, but just like a lot of movies that we get in, like we watch so much that it's just kind of like we'll watch stuff and be like, oh, that was fine, and then you just kind of like you don't really think about it much after that. And that kind of seemed more along the lines of this. Like it did its job mostly. There were some like very lacking elements. I think probably my biggest problem with the film is like I did not believe in the romance. I think
Mm-hmm.
the female lead, I think her name is Rachel Ward. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, I think she was probably miscast because I never got the sense that there was like there was a little bit of sensuality between them, but I never really felt like they were really like falling for one another, or like some of her acting choices whenever she was kind of backed into a corner. I was just like, I don't really like I don't think she's meant to be believable in this moment, but I don't believe what is going on with her character at this moment. So it kind of just seemed off. The things I responded to most was actually the moments where the Jason Patrick had with the young boy that was kidnapped and kind of
Yeah.
him kind of like taking care of him and stuff. I wanted that to kind of be developed a little bit further, and I kind of liked how that did develop ultimately. But overall, it's a very messy, not completely well realized movie. I think it's fine, but I think there's just elements that kind of sink it from being great. And especially like when you're wasting Bruce Dern like this, I think it's kind of a shame. Like
Yeah.
he comes in and like he kind of makes an impression, but he's capable of so much more. So it was kind of disappointing, I admit.
Yeah. And there's just really weird moments that like almost kind of feel like it's from a different movie, like when he kidnaps the wrong kid on purpose.
Mhm.
This kid is like super like take me round the block, he was like he's this fully fleshed sort of wiseacre character, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? What is this movie? And
Yeah.
it sort of sprinkles these weird little non sequiturs, and that's fine if you're really leaning in on like the David Lynchian sort of
Mhm.
almost like a dream kind of thing, but the movie never commits to that, so it further just makes this movie feel messy and disjointed. So yeah, I'm glad you said something about the chemistry, because yeah, that is, I do not believe that they're madly wildly in love with each other, or even just like a one-sided thing.
Maybe try before you buy if it's streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
My next title, it's my first box set, and it's a biggie, but I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. I think it's pretty easy considering the subject matter of this. I can go through these pretty quickly. But this is from Shout Studios. It's the Irwin Allen Master of Disaster collection, which includes 7 films, some theatrical. I think most of these were TV movies. And I'll kind of show these off real quick. So you got that slip box, and it's just kind of your standard case. I have to be very careful with these because they're very prone to fall out. So you have flood, don't want this, fire, hanging by a thread. Oh, yep. These disc 4 and 5, they're a son of a bitch. And they keep trying to fall out. So Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, When Time Ran Out, and 2 more. The Night the Bridge Fell Down, and Cave In. And a lot of these titles are very self-explanatory. So yeah, Irwin Allen, for those who don't know, he made a lot of like the biggest kind of like most successful disaster films, like Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno and stuff. So he knows his stuff, and he kind of stuck in this kind of wheelhouse for this collection at least. And Overall, all of these films are pretty enjoyable. There are some like sets that I've had to go through in rapid succession where I kind of got burnt out a little bit. And even though these are fairly conventional from movie to movie and kind of follow a lot of the same tropes, I didn't find myself getting bored by each, because it's like each movie offered something new. Like Flood, like it's just like about a dam. Usually, okay, what you can pretty much count on in these movies is like a situation that's like about to happen. Like some people probably know that there's a little bit of danger in store, and there's probably warning someone who's like greedy to like fix something, and they're like, "No, I'm not gonna fix that. It's fine. You're overreacting," and then the thing happens, and then you pretty much get caught up in like a. There's some interpersonal drama, and then there's like usually flashbacks to before times and all this stuff. So it's fairly conventional. So the first one involves a dam bursting whenever someone's like, "Hey, the dam's unstable," and it's like, "No, it's not," and then it is. Fire is about like an uncontrollable fire that like gets out of control because someone doesn't realize that a fire wasn't completely put out in one area, so it just becomes like an inferno. Hanging by a Thread is one of the longer ones. There's two movies in here that are 3 hours plus long. I think it was like a 2-night miniseries type of deal. So Hanging by a Thread involves like, it's like one of those cable car carriers that runs from like one mountain to another, and it kind of gets like stuck and suspended, and there's a lot of like interpersonal drama flashbacks and stuff, and of course like people returning to other people. All these people happen to be in this one cable car and stuff. Beyond the Poseidon Adventures, one of the theatrical movies. It's the sequel to the Poseidon Adventure, and I've only seen the remake, Poseidon, not the original Poseidon Adventure, but from what I can tell, this just picks up right after the Poseidon Adventure. And this one stars Michael Caine and Sally Fields. There's a lot of really great actors in here, which I'll list them off here in a little bit. But they're like a pair of excavators who are like trying to find treasure that's on the sunken Poseidon. And so they kind of go down and they kind of get stuck in this ship. When Time Ran Out is a volcano picture. The Night the Bridge Fell Down, pretty self-explanatory. It's about people getting stuck on a bridge that's falling down. It has like Leslie Nielsen and stuff. And Leslie Nielsen returns for Cave In along with some other people, which involves a cave in a cave. So usually there's some wild elements thrown in for extra drama, like in Cave In, there's like an escaped criminal who's like in the cave with them. They just always try to ratchet up the drama somehow. So people that I haven't talked about, Paul Newman is in When Time Ran Out, Shirley Jones, Telly Savalas, Jacqueline Bisset, William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Roddy McDowell. There's a lot of great actors in these movies that kind of enhance these even more. Overall, this is a really fun set, and it's really well put together by Shout. These all come from 2K scans of the inner positive, except for Fire, which is listed as coming from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. But all these look very nice. These come from the Shout Studios deal with Warner Brothers. So if these would have been put out by Shout, they probably would have put out by the Warner Archive. So I'm sure it was made by the same team that did those. So there are actually two movies, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure and When Time Ran Out, that have extended cuts in standard definition. So those are like special features. Both of those run about 30 to 35 minutes longer than their theatrical counterparts. So it's an interesting extra, even if they are only in standard definition. Otherwise, in terms of special features, you have an assortment of trailers, a few promo spots, and some still galleries. Nothing too extensive, no commentaries or anything, but decent. So if you like disaster films, these are in very good quality. DTS 2.0 sound, looks nice, decent extras. Overall, it's a good compact set for disaster fans. Definitely recommend it. I had a blast. It's a real fun time. A lot of great stars.
Nice. So it sounds like, unlike that box set, this was not a disaster of a release.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's great. So from one kind of cool discovery to another, my next title is Malone, which is apparently in a series of films. I did not realize that. And here's the back. So slipcover, and this doesn't have reversible art. But I think the cover art is already pretty badass. And I'll talk about that scene in a little bit. But yeah, so I find the making of this film a little bit more probably interesting than the actual film itself. Burt Reynolds was having like a really incredibly awful period when making this. He had a string of flops. There was rumors about him that he was trying to sort of get out from under. It was just not a really great time for Burt Reynolds. But I will say he gives this movie his all, even though this wasn't really peak Burt Reynolds. I mean, you can really tell like why he was such a big star. Like he just had that like huge charisma. Unfortunately, this movie was a pretty big box office bomb. Yet I still found it pretty enjoyable. It's one of those films where it feels a little bit like Dukes of Hazzard sort of meets like a really fun action film. Like this is Orion that produced this, but it feels like a canon film. And I mean that in like the best possible way. You know, it's just a series of really cool action set pieces. Burt is really charming as hell. The plot is really not that incredible. It's like very familiar. It's stuff you've seen 100 times before, but it's lean and brisk enough that I never felt like it was boring or lagged. The finale is literally explosive. It's one of the coolest things. And so this was 87. So, I mean, so we got the explosion there. So it was all practical. Like, you know, it just, I love seeing like just shit getting blown up. And he's so badass when he does it. This sort of ruins it, but it's still in the moment, it's still really cool. So this does have a commentary track from Steve Mitchell, who is really cool. I've talked to him before. I've interviewed him for our YouTube channel, and he is also joined by Nathaniel Thompson. They've done commentary tracks together before. They're always really great. They kind of talk about some of the strained sort of relationships that was going on in the film as far as making it. Burt Reynolds and some really interesting kind of information about the series, about making this film, etc. So it looks really good as well. It's one of those movies that, again, sort of like my last Kino Studio Classics movie, it's not a visually striking movie, but this does have a lot of nice set pieces. Of course, like the really nice explosion. It all looks really great here. It doesn't say this comes from a new 2K master, but there is a little bit of like artifacts and a little bit of like wear, but overall it's very clean looking presentation, and it sounds really good as well. So Malone, it might not be something that's maybe on your radar, but if you like fun action films, especially ones that sort of are very painfully 80s, you should definitely check this one out.
Yeah, absolutely. Kino's been on a Burt Reynolds craze for a while now, and I'm excited they keep churning those out. So yeah, definitely recommended for anyone who's a Burt Reynolds fan. My next title, this is one of my favorite discoveries of the week. This is from Unearthed Films, and this is Suburra from 2015. I kind of watched this on a whim, and it turned out to be a very good choice for me because this actually, the director of this was involved with a lot of stuff that I really like. I've talked about the series Gomorrah on here a couple times that Kino Lorber put out in the past, and this is also the director. I pulled out my copy of the Sicario sequel, Sicario: Day of the Soldado. So anyone who hasn't seen the Sicario sequel, definitely check it out. But this was made a couple years before that in 2015. And it's sticking kind of the Gomorrah vein, where it's like an Italian crime drama. It's set over the course of a few days, where it's like a mixture of like low level criminals mixing with like the political side of things and how they interact. It all hinges around this new deal that is happening, where there's like a potential to sell this expanse of land around Rome, and kind of cultivate it to be like the next Las Vegas. So it's kind of like all these criminal dealings in service of trying to make this deal go forward. And throughout, there's you see like politicians getting themselves over their head with like sex workers and like dead sex workers, and then like revenge being taken out, and like how that kind of escalates. And all these kind of back and forth between like these different crime families and politicians, all this, and how it all kind of like interweaves. It works really well for me. I love a good crime drama, and this one is very well shot, very well constructed. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and it never really drags at any point. And what really helped one for me personally, I probably won't do this for everyone, but the soundtrack to this one is largely made up of one of a band that I really love called M83. They put out one of their most acclaimed albums is "Hurry Up, We're Dreaming," and there's a lot of songs that they've taken from that album and just included it in this movie. They're not always like. Sometimes I'm like, does this scene deserve a song this great, like this epic sometimes? But overall, I was having a good time with it. So that was just an extra added layer for me. So if you're a fan of M83, definitely check this one out. But even if you're just a fan of crime dramas, this one does really well. It's very well constructed, a lot of like shifting factions and everything. Really well done. So this Blu-ray, it looks very nice. Like I said, it's from 2015, so it's like a newer HD master. It looks very nice. This has a 2 hour and 8 minute documentary on the making of this film, which is almost the length of the film. It's just a few minutes short, and I was shocked. Like I'm not used to films getting that like substantial of a documentary these days, unless you're like certain boutique labels. But even like most boutique labels don't go over the 2 hour mark. Usually, like it's wild. So you learn pretty much everything you want to know about the production of this movie. It also has like a trailer and stuff, but that's pretty much all you need. This is in the original Italian, 5.1 soundtrack. Overall, highly recommended. Suburra, I really enjoyed discovering it from Unearthed Films, and yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. It's definitely one that wasn't on my radar, but yeah, like I love a good action film, and that sounds pretty intriguing. So I don't know if this is my favorite discovery of this week, but it definitely is up there. Because I think my expectations were kind of low, but we'll get into it. And that is the latest 4K release from Blue Underground, and is Jess Franco's "The Girl from Rio." And here, and inside. So I'm not. I confess I'm not the biggest Franco fan. I think his stuff's a little hit or miss with me. I know there's people that absolutely worship the director, and that's great. Like I'm not saying don't, but just my personal taste, I'm just sort of like but I really like this. And I think just keeping my expectations kind of low was maybe a good thing. This is a very blatant sort of James Bond knockoff. The filmmakers seem to not really make any sort of concessions about it not being. It's basically like just different enough so they don't get sued. Um, but I think what I love about this film is the camp value. It is so amazingly high, and I love that Franco really embraces that aspect. The film is kind of your basic sort of espionage thing, but then it really starts to evolve in this really weird, like female army and a lot of weird fetishes. And who doesn't love that? So the film not only is really kind of interesting at times, but I love the look of it. It's very surreal, and it has this really clean yet really strange minimalistic look as far as its sets. The costumes are really ridiculous and outrageous. You can see some of the interesting outfits going on here. Yeah, it's just one of those. If you like stuff like Barbarella, Danger, Diabolique, it's just one of those movies that like you will have a good time. This looks really fantastic. Unlike the other films that I've talked about, this really does have a beautiful visual style to it. It is very like 60s, like colors really pop. This was this was 69. Yeah, so it's very like kitschy of the period. So like colors are like a big aspect of this film, and the 4K presentation really highlights that in a way that's nice. It's not oversaturated, it's not desaturated. It retains that really nice grain. quality. There's no artifacts. It's just a really clean looking presentation. Audio sounds really great as well, and we have a host of new features. I mean, practically everything on there is brand new. Um, one of the best features, though, I want to point out is the Riff Tracks edition is included. So
Nice.
that's a really fun feature. It's kind of rare when you get like a Riff Tracks or a Mystery Science Theater bonus episode as a feature. Like certainly only Shout Factory would probably have that as far as Mystery Science Theater, but yeah, the Riff Tracks edition is really fun. Again, that's such a cool feature. I think that's like the first time that I can recall them doing that for a Blue Underground release. If I'm wrong, chime in the comments, but I'm pretty sure this is the first one. So really awesome. The artwork's cool. It's got a lot of features. It looks great. It's really campy as hell. George Sanders just devours the scenery in this as a bad guy. He's just having a blast, and it's a really fun time. As far as like Bond knockoffs, this is like, I think, pretty top tier.
Awesome. Yeah. I always pretty much love Blue Underground's 4K output, so I'm excited that they put this one out. I have not delved into Jess Franco as much as other people, but I guess we'll see how it goes because I trust Blue Underground. My next title, especially referring to labels I trust, this is from Radiance Films, and this is The Dead Mother, which I believe is from 1993. I'll remove the OBI strip, and it's from, I believe it's from Spain. So yeah, Spanish language, 1993. So here it is without the strip. Kind of see here, and let me flip this cover art around. So as with most Radiance Films limited edition, like first run sets, this includes a booklet, which I'll show up here in a second. So here is the reversible cover art here and there. And then you have the booklet here. Here's the back. And you got some art photos and essays, all that good stuff. And I believe this is a first for at least domestically for Radiance Films. This actually includes the CD soundtrack in addition to the Blu-ray, which is a pretty cool addition. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad they included that. So for this film, I liked it quite a bit. It's an interesting one. It's like dealing a lot with morality and like the concept of redemption. At the beginning of the film, there is this man who is a thief. He has like invaded a house one night and he is like looking at the artwork. And while he is in the process of this, he ends up shooting this woman who is at the house with her daughter. So the daughter witnesses this. So he kills the mother, the daughter witnesses it. And he ends up shooting the daughter as well, but he does not kill her, and it kind of leaves her in kind of like a diminished state where she ends up having to like live in like a facility for like mentally impaired youth. So it's like you kind of meet up with her again whenever she's a little bit older. I believe she's like maybe in her late teens, early 20s whenever we meet her again, and you get the sense that this man was never caught. This thief was never caught because you meet up with him later, and the past of this young woman who is still not completely herself and this man cross, and he believes whenever he sees her that she recognizes him, and he wants to take care of that. He has like a girlfriend too that he is aware of his criminal dealings. But what you come to understand is it probably wasn't that he believed that she might recognize him. It was probably more so just like kind of like this sense of guilt or unfinished business that's inside him. So he ends up kidnapping her, and it becomes like this kind of dynamic between the two of them, forming an unsteady, unusual relationship where like she is like his captor, and she is also kind of has like the brain of like an early child basically, and it's uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be, and you kind of get a sense that he thinks that he is doing one thing and forming a certain kind of relationship, and she is kind of like doing something, but like their interactions and their dynamics, and like them holding her for or for ransom, and how it impacts the relationship with his actual girlfriend, how this all kind of materializes and evolves, it works very well. It's very intriguing. It's kind of like, I know it's like kind of lame to reduce stuff to this, but it's kind of like Hitchcockian, where you're kind of like, it's mysterious. You never know like what levels are being played and what like how this is all going to ultimately resolved, and like the almost kind of psychosexual tension, but a little bit tawdry. I don't know. It worked. I liked it overall, and if you're a fan of Spanish language cinema or like international cinema in general, or these kind of like morally gray dramas, I think you should definitely check this one out. This comes from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative, overseen by the director. This does have a commentary from the director as well, a 38-minute making of documentary on this, and then an additional 38-minute short film from the director, which had won some awards a few years before this came out. And you also have the essay and then the soundtrack. So overall, very well-rounded package for this this nice discovery. So The Dead Mother, if it sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. I think it's worth it. So good job. Another one from Radiance Films. They rarely let me down.
Nice. I mean, you had me at psychosexual thriller. So
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know a good transition from that title to mine, but my next title is Saratoga from Warner Archives. And this one is sort of notorious for being the final film of Jean Harlow. She unfortunately passed away, not even having completed the film. They did some clever editing and voiceover to sort of, I think most of her scenes were shot, but it was one of those cases where, they needed to sort of fill in some of the blanks. So unfortunately, that kind of overshadowed most of the film, and I think they even speculate that it was a box office hit. Not huge. It was made on a $1.1 million dollar budget, and it made over 3 million. Which for the time, for I guess this was still 37. This was like still Great Depression. This was probably like pretty good. But the film itself is interesting. I had heard of it before, obviously because of Jean Harlow, but it is a really fun kind of. It's not quite. It's interesting. It's not quite a screwball comedy, but it kind of has shades of that. But it also kind of feels like it has these sort of class divide themes of like Lubitsch. It feels a little bit like Frank Capra-esque as well. But I don't know, it's kind of just a fun, wacky, not like people are constantly kind of swindling each other in guise of the horse racing. And Jean Harlow, of course, is kind of caught in the middle of this. Yeah, again, it's really unfortunate. It's kind of eerie watching this because there's scenes where Jean Harlow just does not look well, so it's kind of sad in a way watching it. But yeah, it's fairly sort of standard, sort of wacky comedy. It never goes like very over the top, but I think it balances that and the emotional arc of the characters really well. Again, it does have that really interesting sort of like commentary on class. This is kind of neat because this has Frank Morgan in it, which Wizard of Oz fans will know is the wizard. But what's really fun is there's a scene on a train when he has a conversation with, so he's a cosmetic person, like owner of a cosmetic company, and Margaret Hamilton comes up and kind of complains to him about his product. And I guess the joke is Margaret Hamilton is like not attractive, but it's funny. It's a fun scene, but it's like funny to see like two Wizard of Oz alumni in a scene together pre Wizard of Oz. So Wizard of Oz came out in 39. This was 37. So that was kind of fun. I did like that scene quite a lot. But it's great. You know, Clark Gable, he's very charming. Like I get the appeal, but at the same time, I'm like, he was not that good looking.
Harsh.
Well, yeah, I don't know. He just, I mean, he does have that charisma, but it's just that face is just hard to look at. Sorry. Um, but you know, Lionel Barrymore is great. He's like this funny old curmudgeon-y guy. He started to be grating a little bit, but I mean, I always love seeing him and stuff. So yeah, it's a fun film. It's that nice mixture of like breezy comedy, but it has some really nice emotional stakes. Again, everyone's great. It's just sad that this was sort of Jean Harlow's kind of final film. She died rather young. This looks great. Again, I've never really had an issue with Warner Archive and their presentation. You know, especially from a movie from like the, you know, late 30s. The picture looks really clear. It's black and white, but the black and white contrast looks really nice. There's no artifacts, there's no scratches or anything. The audio is also very crisp. They were obviously working from some really nice material. So yeah, it's great if you're a Clark Gable fan, if you're a Jean Harlow fan, you love these actors. Yeah, this is great. We've gotten a lot of like Jean Harlow stuff recently, so that's awesome. Keep them coming. Unfortunately, she doesn't have a huge filmography, but you know, it's nice to treasure what we do have. So this looks great.
Absolutely. You can't really go wrong with Warner Archive, so I'm glad they keep putting out her stuff, and definitely recommend that one for people. My next title, I'm going to the silent era of cinema. This one's a little bit difficult to discuss in depth, but I'll kind of try to do my best. This is Lon Chaney Before the Thousand Faces, Volume 2. So this was mostly his work. This is from 1914 to 1917. So this was before like Phantom of the Opera or Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is a 2-disc set of some of his work. And as the press release kind of says, in like the 1910s, he made like about like I think it said like 111 movies. Yeah, 111 films, but only 24 of those still survive in some form or another. And a lot of them are kind of like in unfinished state. So there are 5 works on here, but most of them aren't like totally complete. They're like as complete as possible. Some of these were found in like from people's collections and stuff. So so you have a 13-minute film, a 46-minute film, a 6-minute clip, a 33-minute film, and a 62-minute film. So about 2 hours and 40 minutes of material overall. So some of these are so short and everything that it's kind of hard to break these down like title by title what they're about, because once you tell like the synopsis, you're basically done. But what this is this is a lot of Lon Chaney before he started like getting into his makeup work. There's a little bit of that in the Scarlet Car, which is the one that's the oldest in this one. But what you can really expect from Lon Chaney in this one is that he covers a wide range of different genres. He plays like a gangster, he plays like a love-struck writer, he plays like a Elizabethan era like royal figure and stuff. So he plays a lot of different types of roles within these films, and it's interesting to see kind of his range, which people who are more so like with familiar with his more like horror or like makeup centric work may not be realize like what he did before he was like known as like the chameleonic performer that he became. But overall, these are interesting from like a historical perspective. Not all of them are like captivating, but they're like interesting to kind of view in the context of his career, and they're entertaining enough. I wouldn't say they're like blow me away, but I enjoyed them. So if you're a fan of Lon Chaney, I think it's definitely worth it to seek this out, just because you get to learn more about the performer and like what he's capable of, and just like have like a piece of film history that, like I said, a lot of these films they've just been lost to time. So like the fact that there are still certain collectors like finding little like bits here and there and they're being preserved, I think that's great. Two of these were preserved by the Library of Congress. Those are the ones that hold up a little bit better, but some of the collector prints, I think they work really well. So that being said, the video side of the equation of this, these are decent, but not fantastic. There's some like very egregious damage in some of these, almost like completely obscured frames at sometimes, but it's not consistent, but there is some like heavy damage in some of these. Considering these are over 100 years old, you can kind of forgive it. And like if it's between not seeing them or getting them in these kind of like damaged form, I'm glad that we're getting to see them at least a little bit. Some of these are reconstructed using like some of the script pages, or you get kind of like title cards that kind of like, oh, we don't have the third reel of this movie, but this is what happens in this section. And it kind of like gives you a little bit of text to catch you up on the plot. So it's not perfect, but they're making the best of a bad situation since these are not available in complete form. So Undercrank Films, there are no special features on this, but this two-disc set, it looks nice. And there's new scores by John C. Marsalis, I think. He did help with kind of the restoration efforts as well, like getting in touch with some of the collectors. Volume 2 of Lon Chaney, The Man Before a Thousand Faces, Before the Thousand Faces, is recommended for Lon Chaney fans and silent era cinema fans. Even if they're not like his top tier work, I think they're a good piece of history to check in on.
Nice. Yeah, and like you said, it's one of those we definitely need to treasure what we do have, and it's nice that they seem to give that a really nice release. So my next title is one that it's kind of wild that I've never seen before. And that is School of Rock. This is the 20th anniversary steelbook. So this is just Blu-ray. This is not 4K. So we do have like, yeah, I know. So let me pop this disc out. So there is the inside artwork, or not artwork, but still. And then this does have a digital code. It's not in there now, but if you order it, you will have one. It is interesting that this is not a 4K, and I'm kind of wondering, there's this like trend of Paramount doing steelbooks and then doing the 4Ks. So if you want a 4K of this, you might want to wait. If you don't really care, then just get the steelbook, I guess. But School of Rock is fine. I know it is a lot of people's favorite movie. It's got a really big following, and I like Jack Black a lot. I feel like he's definitely the main draw. I thought the really femme kid was really funny too, the costume designer, which could be cringe depending on how you view that. But yeah, I just it's interesting seeing like Mike White in this like pre like White Lotus. I'm like, wow, I forgot that he used to like act in things. But yeah, I don't know. So it's I'm trying to think of how I want to describe this movie. It's one of those like, I put it on, I have a good time, it's satisfying, but it's not like mind blowing. It's not going to change your perception of cinema. It's just one of those fun comfort movies. Like it just hits all the right beats. It's very sentimental. It's maybe a little bit overly sappy, but you know, if you're kind of in that sort of saccharine mood, that I feel like this really hits those beats. And yeah, it's fun. I like Jack Black. I love Tenacious D. I am such a huge Tenacious D fan. I also love Jack Black's music in Mario. But yeah, it was all right. It's just not mind blowing. Sarah Silverman is in it, but she kind of has this one dimensional sort of nagging character. But yeah, it's just one of those feel good movies. It's fine. The Blu-ray looks really good. I mean, again, I haven't seen this before, so obviously I haven't seen any of the other releases. But if I had to bet, it probably would be just from like an older Blu-ray master. That being said, it still does look, it looks pretty good. Colors really pop. There is a little bit of like blurring or definition isn't as crisp or clear as you sort of would want it to, and that's where I'm thinking like a 4K would be a lot nicer. But overall, being like not really that old, it looks pretty good. I think this is the 20th anniversary edition, so it's fine. Sounds good as well. There is no new features. It's all port overs from the previous releases, but those are pretty fun. They have a couple commentary tracks. I believe the kids are on one of the commentary track, which is a really good time. So hopefully, maybe if this sells well enough, they might do a 4K, but I think this is a nice presentation overall. Um, so yeah. So what do you think of this movie?
Yeah, I really like the movie a lot. This is like a favorite of my wife Jessica's. So for the past few years, she's been like, oh, we have this on DVD, and she's like, should I get the Blu-ray? I'm like, just wait a minute. I have a feeling they're going to do a 4K sometime. And so I kept waiting, and then they finally announced this, and I was like, yeah, Blu-ray, and I was like, damn it. So at least we now own it on Blu-ray, but I know probably sometime like next year we're going to get a 4K and it'll get the presentation I think it actually deserves. But yeah, I really like this movie. Like I said, it's a comfort movie, but I view that as more of a positive than you, I guess, because like I crave them. I think maybe more than you do. Like I love it. I as soon as we got this in, and I was like in our kitchen with my wife, and I was like showing her the steel book and stuff. She just started like quoting random lines, and it just made my heart like. So it's more of a personal thing. I'm just
Yeah.
like, she was making me laugh, but I was very excited to get this in, and I will pick up the 4K whenever it comes out. I think they should have done it first, but I understand Paramount wants their money, so enjoy our money. But my next title, it's another box set. I have only box sets remaining. So my next box set is from Kino Studio Classics. This is the Audie Murphy Collection Volume 3. So I covered the second volume about a month or two ago on one of my solo Kino videos, but this is the third volume. So for this installment, we have Hell Bent for Leather, and then we have Posse from Hell, and then Showdown. And all of these it just has your standard like Kino discs, so I don't really feel like I need to show off every single one of them, but yes, that's what we got. So overall, this is a pretty solid collection. Hellbent for Leather is a tale of like Audie Murphy coming to town and getting mistaken for a criminal, and he kind of gets like hauled off by like a sheriff to like go face sentencing. But along the way, you realize that the sheriff, who's like kind of like a bounty hunter figure, he knows that this isn't the guy that he's supposed to be bringing in, but he's like so like weighed down by like the days spent, like the like months and months spent tracking down the real person. He's just gonna like take this guy in anyway, but he escapes and then gets like a posse like to follow him and stuff, and he ends up kidnapping this woman who he gets on his side and stuff. So it's like this complex tale of like trying to like earn his redemption and all this good stuff. Overall pretty solid. Posse from Hell is a tale of he is once again in a law enforcement role, and this one is kind of one of the more like dark and gnarly Audie Murphy movies I've seen, because like on the commentary track they almost kind of like describe this as almost like a Western horror movie, because it's very bleak in a lot of ways, because Audie Murphy plays a lawman who gets like a posse of some of the townspeople and like a banker's person played by John Saxon to go after this gang of criminals who have like killed a bunch of people in town and taken this woman off. And they're aim is that they're probably going to assault her and everything. So it gets very dark, and it kind of deals with like, so yeah, trigger warnings for sexual assault and everything. But this is very gritty, very like visceral Western vengeance, and it's one of the more intense Audie Murphy films I've seen. It's really good. It's just very intense. So Posse from Hell is, I guess it would be a standout from this one. But my third film is Showdown, which probably overall for like the sake of like variety is like the least interesting, but overall it's a good movie. It involves Audie and like his friend who they've been like kind of like out doing ranch hand stuff, and they've come to town and they get themselves caught up in like this whole like conspiracy with this outlaw who they all end up getting like chained to the same post because one of Audie Murphy's friend ends up getting into a bar fight. They spend overnight chained up to this pole, but they end up like getting enmeshed in this plan to like flee, break free and flee, and they have to deal with that. Like they're on the run, but trying to clear their names for being like actual good guys and stuff. Overall, I enjoyed all three tales. Through Kino, pretty much solely. I've grown to like Audie Murphy a lot more than I did a few years ago. All these boutique labels have really helped me like gain a more of an appreciation for classic westerns, and I think these are really good movies if you're a fan of Audie Murphy or old westerns in general. I think this collection will do you right. These are not listed as coming from new scans or restorations or anything, so there's some like source deficiencies here and there, some nicks and scratches, a little bit of softness and stuff. No like outright crazy damage, but it's just a little not as crisp as some of the restorations we've gotten from Kino. Both Hellbent for Leather and Posse from Hell have audio commentary tracks. Showdown does not. Other than that, there's just trailers. But if you're an Audie Murphy fan, I think it'll suit you well. If you're not a fan, definitely don't check it out. But otherwise, I think it's a solid set.
Nice. Yeah, if you're not a fan, I don't imagine you would even buy this set, but
Yeah, you'd be just like a real glutton for punishment.
I mean, yeah, you can just hate watch it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy this box set, but I'm gonna hate every moment.
Hey, as long as you're supporting Kino, that's fine. So this is actually my final title, but I wanted to save the one I was most excited for. This definitely is my favorite discovery this week. That is Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Hmm.
And back and got some different artwork. There's no reversible artwork, but I mean, between those two, that's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
So this is one that was not, I mean, it was kind of on my radar because of being a Clint Eastwood film. Jeff Bridges, also a pretty big fan. So I believe this was something that Kino put out previously, just as like a standalone Blu-ray. And yeah, this is a really fun, just like heist movie. Right away, the movie sets a really fun tone. Like Clint Eastwood is this like preacher, and he's literally giving a sermon, and then these bad guys kind of are on his trail and chaos ensues. Well, of course, Clint Eastwood's character is not a pastor. He is kind of wanted by these criminals. There's this sort of convoluted plot about money being hidden, and he meets Jeff Bridges' character. Shenanigans ensues. Basically, this isn't really a comedy, but it's interesting because it has a very light tone. Like it's action probably the dominantly, and a crime thriller, but again, it sort of has this like really weird sort of like edging on comedy tone, which that's like one of my problems with the finale, which I'll get into. But the casting of this is perfect. I think Eastwood and Bridges really have this amazing chemistry together. Bridges' character is very light and silly. He balances out Eastwood's very stoic, kind of not flat, but he's basically every Clint Eastwood character ever in memoriam. So the two really work well together. I don't know if they liked filming together, but I mean, they really play off each other extremely well. The other thing that's really awesome is the car crashes and car chase scenes in this are probably some of my favorite of the decade. And that's really saying something because, you know, the 70s had a lot of amazing movies with like really great stunt car stuff. So I was really impressed by that. That was one element that I had never really even considered would be part of this movie. But yeah, that's really fantastic. Like if you're a big fan of like really amazing car crashes and car stunts, this is great. So my biggest issue with the film is one, it's a little bit too long. I feel like there's a lot of sort of filler information and backstory that doesn't really quite pay off. The other bigger issue I think is tone. Again, the movie walks this very consistent line of being lighthearted, and even when they deal with stuff that's maybe a little bit darker, it's always kind of handled in a way that never feels bleak or depressing. But then the finale happens, and I'm not going to spoil it, but like, holy shit, it like almost does a 180. It doesn't really ruin the movie for me, but I will say that it makes it feel a little bit off. Like it feels almost like it comes from a different movie. It's overall a lot of fun. Again, it's one of the discoveries that I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I would watch this again for sure. This comes from a new 4K scan from the original camera negative. It looks really great. I didn't have any see any issues as far as over processing or colors looking a little bit too drab or desaturated. Everything looks really nice. It's not a really visual movie, but this is really well shot. So, you know, having this upgrade is really nice. Sounds really good as well. It's got a commentary track. It's got some other like features, including a featurette with the director. And it's a really nice presentation, really nice package. The film is really fun. Have you seen this one yet?
I have, yeah. I got to check out the 4K, and it was my first time watching it. And I had a lot of fun with
Yeah.
it too. Yeah,
But
they
what
have
do
a
you
good
think?
dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of the end? I mean, without spoiling it, do you agree that like tonally it's a little bit different from the rest of the
I guess so. It like it snaps. It kind of breaks the illusion of just like, oh, this is like a light buddy movie and stuff, and it kind of like it ups the stakes a little bit. But it didn't give me like whiplash or anything. I ran with it, and I thought it did well. But yeah, it definitely kind of matures a little bit there in the last little bit.
Yeah, I know. I liked it. I mean, there's definitely some cringy stuff, but it's definitely not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I have very complicated feelings about Eastwood movies, especially just how sort of he seems very right wing, and a lot of his later directorial movies are very right wing. But you know, just him as an actor being directed by somebody else, I always feel like they utilize him really well. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I just think that ending. I mean, I like the ending, but it's such a downer because the rest of the movie's so I don't know, but it didn't bother me. I still liked it.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that 4K for anyone who is interested in the movie because I thought the 4K presentation was really nice.
What did you think of Jeff Bridges and Drag?
I'd hit it. I don't know.
Okay.
No, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a product
Yeah.
of the time. Yeah. My final title, it was one I was a little bit hesitant to check out, but I felt like I needed to, especially for our fans who I know are big genre fans, and I felt this would appeal to them. And I'll kind of explain my history with this franchise here in a second. So this is the Toxic Avenger collection, in 4K. So got the 4 Toxic Avenger movies here, each with their own disc. I can show those off real quick here. So this comes with a little postcard here. So of the founders, and so you got the Toxic Avenger here, and then you got the Blu-ray disc and the 4K disc here. Uh, there you go. Let's see, no reversible cover art. Toxic Avenger Part 2. The Blu-ray and the 4K disc. Part 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie. And okay, so the Blu-ray, yeah, Blu-ray disc and the 4K disc here. And finally, uh, Citizen Toxie, Toxic Avenger 4. So this one seems like it was made about 10 to 12 years after the first three, like the number 3. So you have the Blu-ray and the 4K here. So my previous experience with this franchise is I was very interested in it when I was younger, just because I'd heard about it. And I remember, I believe I rented the first one from Netflix back in their mail-in DVD service. And I remember getting about 15 to 20 minutes into the movie, and I was like, oh, I hate this. I do not like this. So I stopped watching it, which I very rarely do for movies. But I felt like I've gotten older and I want to check this out and see how I had evolved with stuff like this. And it got better for me. It's still not perfect, and there's certain issues I have with some of the movies. I haven't really checked out a lot of trauma stuff because of that first experience with the Toxic Avenger, but the first one is probably my favorite. It's definitely, I think, the best of these movies. And then they kind of go down in quality. Especially, I did not really like the fourth one at all. The first 3, they're the best way I can describe these movies is they are tasteless. They are definitely like, they are intentionally trying to like push the boundaries and like just do stuff off kilter and everything. But this is the tale of the first superhero from New Jersey, and it involves like a kid who's being kind of picked on by these bullies. He ends up getting knocked into like a vat of like toxic waste, and then he becomes the Toxic Avenger, who's like this deformed figure, affectionately named Toxie. And this movie, the first 3 movies especially, like it deals with him like as a superhero and trying to come to terms with like his new place in life, and like cleaning up Tromaville from all like these like all the criminals and stuff that invade them. But it has a very oddball sense of humor that sometimes I respond to, and then other times I just think is just not very funny. But overall, especially the first film, I had a decent time with it. It's very hard to talk about this franchise because like there are elements like how they handle like the blind girlfriend. Like I would laugh at some stuff, but then they got kind of like increasingly more buffoonish like in like the second and third movies. And then like the fourth movie just kind of went, it's like a whole different thing. But I like the lady who plays the blind girlfriend in the first movie. The second one, I don't find her to be as effective, but I think it's more so how she's written rather than how she plays it. Just I think she's just asked to play it more over the top than I think it really needs to be. It does amuse me how they kind of like integrate some like the flashbacks with each movie and how they kind of treat it almost as a kind of a serial of like building movies. The second film, they go to Japan, which has its all, of course, like dated like an un-PC elements. And then the third film like brings it back to Tromaville and Toxie having to figure out his place when in Tromaville whenever all the crime has been cleaned up. Who is he as a person and stuff. The fourth movie, it just like, it seems like they really went all in on like trying to be like as shocking and offensive as possible. And it kind of has kind of that sickening sense of humor that I don't really like. A lot of like scatological humor, and then a lot of humor like focused on like mentally challenged people and stuff. And there's just a lot of stuff within that one. And then Toxie isn't even really cleaning up. Like he's not a superhero because it's kind of like this weird like alternate reality Toxie who's bad, and it's just a whole thing. Fourth film did not really like. The first 3 films, they're fine, but there's definitely elements that kind of make me cringe, I think on purpose. But overall, it's a mixed bag for me. Like I said, these are tasteless. If you're into it, I understand why. If you hate them, I also understand why. Since I had only seen the first 20 minutes of Toxic Avenger on DVD back in the day, I can't really judge how big of a upgrade some of these are, but I'll kind of get into my experiences with this. And I also have like an aside on one of them I have to kind of explain as well. So These have been restored in 4K from 4K scans of the original camera negative of each film, performed by Vinegar Syndrome. I know a lot of people like the lore on the internet is that Troma does very shoddy impression like encodes and stuff on their releases. I don't have any more, but I've heard that like they're not very good at releasing high quality Blu-rays. So I think it comes like as a welcome like sigh of relief that Vinegar Syndrome was handling the restoration of these. And from what I saw, these are very nice 4K transfers. I will say these have been restored, but there's still quite a bit of damage throughout. There's lots of specks and like lines and stuff. So it doesn't seem to be like meticulously cleaned up, but I think this is probably the best they've ever looked. But don't expect like pristine Toxic Avenger. There's still quite a bit of like anomalies to it. They're not beautiful movies, and given the limited budget they shot on, I don't think they were ever meant to be. But this isn't like going to be like a sudden revelation. Like this is like Toxic Avenger, like you never saw it before. Like it's still rough, but the 4K restoration looks nice. This also has the original DTS 2.0 audio. I do want to make a note that I was not able to get completely through the Toxic Avenger 3 on 4K. My disc started freezing and I like tried cleaning it and stuff and like looking at it. I didn't see any scratches. So I'm going to have to get a replacement. I tried it like 5 or 6 times and it kept like not getting past a certain point. So I have an issue with that. I finished it on Blu-ray, but from what I saw and extrapolating from what I saw of the other movies, I'm pretty sure I can say that it's a pretty solid transfer. But I will not do my written review until I've gotten a replacement and can say for sure. And in terms of special features, there are I haven't had that long with the set, so I haven't gotten through all the special features. I know there are intros from Lloyd Kaufman, multitude of commentaries, and different interviews with some of the creative figures. So really stacked special features from what I can tell. Well, once again, I'll be digging into those more with my written review. But overall, I think if you're a fan of the series, I think you'll really enjoy this. If you don't like Troma, I don't think like revisiting it will really change your mind that much, but it helped a little bit with me. But the fourth one's definitely like not for me. But the other three, if I'm in the right mood, I can see myself enjoying it, and I did enjoy it all right. So from Troma to Toxic Avenger Collection in 4K, I think is worth it for fans. I think this is probably the best release you'll ever get from the series.
Yeah, I remember liking the first one. The other ones, not really so much. I might not even have even finished part 4, which I feel like is arguably the worst movie ever made.
Yeah.
But yeah, now is there like if you just like for me, I would just want the first film on 4K. Do you know if they're doing an individual standalone of any of these?
They have not announced that yet, but if they do, I'll try to make an announcement on here. But so far, it seems like it's just this collection. I know a lot of fans are in the same boat where they just like the first one, so maybe give it a little bit. But for now, it's just the collection.
This has like one of my favorite like really shock moments with the kid on the bike
Oh yeah.
and then running over his head. I mean, that's like peak cinema. I feel like we've really peaked at like amazing cinema after that. But
Yeah.
yeah, the only thing I remember about the second film is like the video scene, which I thought was kind of fun. But
I think that's the beginning of the third one when they're in the video store and
oh, that's the
like
third one. Okay, yeah.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
there's still like I don't know. Then maybe I don't
They-
remember the second one. I don't know.
yeah, if you don't remember him like going to Japan, like parasailing to Japan, that's the second one.
Oh, right. Okay. I think I maybe binged those movies pretty hard and then just like forgot about them.
Yeah, it was a
But
wild 2 days for me.
yeah, like you might need to rest, let your sanity slowly come back. But
Yeah, I was
um,
like, dear God.
we watch these movies, so you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is all our movies. We had
Mhm.
quite a lot of them, but some really good ones. for y'all to check out. Some really cool, fun surprises for both of us as far as like new discoveries. We do this every week, so please consider giving this a like, subscribe, comment. We're not doing a comment giveaway, but every time y'all chime in, it's so cool. We definitely read your comments. And just as always, thank you for hanging out with us.